It's been a busy week in Afghanistan. The Taliban now controls half of the country's provincial capitals. Here in New York, Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace, or as Chris Cuomo might say. But I'd like to talk about the coronavirus, because sadly our hot vax summer seems to be giving way to dipshit autumn, as the Delta variant is spreading wildly around the country, particularly among the unvaccinated, with the US averaging around 100,000 new infections a day. And alarmingly, roughly 15% of new cases are children, with over 260 kids being newly hospitalised each day. And all of this means that many hospitals are yet again being stretched to breaking point, particularly in certain parts of the country, with Florida and Texas alone accounting for 40% of new hospitalisations. And the response of Florida's governor has been underwhelming.
Today, Florida's governor conceded things may look bad.
We are seeing people testing positive in higher numbers than I think most people anticipated.
But his message? Deal with it.
It's airborne, it's aerosolized, and so we just have to understand that when that's happening, these waves are something that you have to deal with.
Wow. The world changes so quickly, doesn't it? If you told me just a few years ago that Florida's Republican governor would respond to a deadly threat with, "These waves are something you just have to deal with," I'd have assumed they were talking about Miami sinking into a warming ocean, not a completely different, totally self-induced crisis. And it's pretty tough to hear this cut-rate Coach Taylor saying, "just deal with it," when he seems to be very much not doing that. Just a few weeks ago, DeSantis issued an order banning school mask mandates, making Florida one of at least 7 states now prohibiting schools from imposing them. And school board meetings around the country have seen fiery exchanges about this issue. In North Carolina, Representative Madison Cawthorn showed up to one to do whatever this is.
The greatest threat to our children today does not come from COVID-19. It comes from woke liberal government officials like you who think they are all-knowing and all-wise. I'm a direct descendant of Abraham Kuykendall, one of the first men to settle this county. He knew hardship firsthand. He did not endure that hardship just so a woke school board could begin to systematically strip the responsibility from the hands of parents and guardians to determine what happens with their children.
Okay, so Madison Cawthorn thinks the biggest threat to children is school board members who think they're omniscient. I'd say I was surprised by that, but this is a man who once posted this video of himself beating up a tree. So he clearly loves to pick useless fights against imaginary opponents where he comes out looking like a complete arsehole. Also, quick side note about him bragging about being a descendant of Abraham Kuykendall. Not only does that last name sound like the Swedish translation for Bratz dolls, for the record, Abraham Kuykendall, which is how it's actually pronounced, was one of the earliest slave owners in the county. So next time you're trying to prove a point about how parents should decide what's best for their kids, maybe don't use a guy who decided the best thing for other people's kids was for him to own them. And that was by no means the only wildly inappropriate historical reference during a debate this week.
Just after the Fox Chapel School Board voted for students to wear masks as the new school year begins, people at the meeting started arguing with the board before this person appears to flash the Nazi salute at the board. The Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh says there is no comparison between the Holocaust and masking children in schools.
Okay, I appreciate the effort there, but you really didn't need to ask the Holocaust Centre to fact-check that for you, for the same reason that you don't need to contact an African Studies Centre to ask if the Rwandan genocide was as bad as getting a popcorn kernel stuck in your teeth. If you don't already know the answer, you don't understand either of the things you're comparing. And look, when tempers are this high, it can be hard to sort things through in a nuanced way, but let's try, because first, we can agree for most kids, in-person schooling is vastly preferable to the online kind. The question is how to do it safely. And those opposed to mask mandates argue that since COVID cases in children have tended to be mild, which is thankfully true, the downsides of them wearing masks outweigh the benefits. But that is a big swing. There is still so much that we don't know about how long-term COVID and the Delta variant affects kids. And what we do know is that COVID is significantly more deadly for adults, and in many communities, for some fucking reason, there are lots of unvaccinated adults to whom kids could transmit the virus.